Complex does not equal good, and your characters are trash. I'm here to help you with 4 big areas to focus on when writing your characters and generally a better story. Characterization in a story comes in many different forms, but with this video I'm focusing purely on fiction novels as books compared to movies and TV shows, but the same case applies here as to those. Characters in a story are the central point. It's why you come to read or write whatever you're making, and it's to understand them that allows us to see the story from start to finish. You could write the greatest plot points, twists and turns, and yet if the characters suck, it'd still be a 5 out of 10. To understand what makes a good character from a bad one, you need to understand the big goal you're trying to create. With a fiction novel, it's mostly done by one main person, you yourself if you're watching this video, and even if you're not in the realm of fiction, being a writer knows the difference between good and bad characterization, and it's good to know exactly what it is that determines a well-written character. To understand that, let's break it down into 4 major steps that come between every single part of a character. It all depends on the character themselves. Those 4 parts can be broken down into the protagonist, the antagonist, the side character, and for an extra bonus that I certainly think is up there, the comic relief. The protagonist is who guides the whole story. It's the theme the author or creator is trying to share, and to create the best possible main character, you need to understand what your theme is. Your theme is the thing that connects every single piece together. It's what makes me want to make this video, and it's the lesson that I'm trying to point out with a certain story. I've been typing away my main character for the past several days, and understanding the difference between a good main character or a good protagonist compared to a bad one helped me understand and make this video you're watching. In that time, I spent a lot of details trying to write him out. He needs to be this complex, sturdy, and strong man, but it's also good to know what my purpose is. You need to not write so many details between what you're making with your protagonist that it becomes overwhelming. The key you want to understand is a clear motivation from start to finish. If you want a good example, since I don't watch as much TV shows anymore, the last major TV show I watched was Breaking Bad. The main character, Walter White, is exactly that one clear motivation. From the start of the show all the way to the end, you see this man go to a complete 180 that makes 100% sense. It's perfectly explained throughout the entire course, and it's why he's a perfect protagonist we follow, because not only is he someone to root for, he also deliberately shows the theme and the message of Breaking Bad as a whole, corruption and this whole idea of power. But that's Breaking Bad. The difference between your own work compared to something greater than life, you need to think bigger with your main character. The protagonist is who guides the whole story. So understanding the simple motivation and key allows for the character to shine most. You don't want them to be a blank state because it'd be boring as a main character to follow. Every story needs an entertaining main character, and having one that sits in the background all the while the side characters shine, it's not a fun comparison to say the least. So if you truly want to think about a great main character, read more books about examples that have witty characters that you want to look into. If you want to write your main character as someone strong and frivolous, then go ahead. If you want to write your main character as someone who's more timid but understandably intelligent, then that works too. It doesn't matter who the main character is. It's what the purpose of the main character. It's what they are doing to the greater narrative. And when it comes to that point, number 2, the antagonist. The antagonist is an area that many people usually avoid. It's a big, large conflict that, depending on what story you write, sometimes doesn't even need an antagonist. They could be someone who isn't even a person. It could be a large force like nature. In certain regards, for whatever kind of story, more than likely a fantasy story, the antagonist is someone who opposes the protagonist's ideals. And most of the time, writers and creators get this wrong in the idea that they should be someone who is all powerful. It's not going to work out that way, because some of the worst antagonists you've ever seen are from those fantasy novels in which it's just a copy of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings did it well because that was the general idea it was going for. But having multiple dark forces that continue thriving on that power is such BS that I don't think you should even try and go for it. So instead, what you should do with your antagonist is to think purely at what the protagonist does. The antagonist is a build-up to that central theme. If your theme of your story is all about sacrifice, your main character should be someone who strives for that sacrificial ideal. It's messed up, but it could be the direction you want to take. So thereafter, the antagonist should be someone who follows up on that ideal. Someone who could also oppose it and saying that sacrifice is unnecessary. It could be used in a lot of ways to reflect how people are. But if you want to create the best possible way to share your message, then obviously you need to come up with the best opposing thought, the best way that goes against what you're talking about, to show why they're the antagonist, and that's how it will work in the long run. But to understand where the antagonist lands in between this, along with the protagonist, you need side characters. No matter it's the antagonist's sidekick themselves, or if it's just the main character's friend. Side characters are interesting in that they have multiple ways to go about it, but remember the name. Side characters. It will never work out if a side character is the main character, nor should it ever work out, because that's the point. There's someone who helps central story, but they aren't the focus. We don't follow their journey. We should have enough information to understand why they're important to the greater narrative, but knowing why they are a side character helps understand the theme all the more. There's someone who sits on the side, someone who goes out and continues to help aid the protagonist or antagonist journey, all the while delivering their own conflicts. They could be great by the third act tensions and help build on top of the theme overall. To understand why they work out so well, it's a clear motivation in that too. Think of a relation to the theme in what your story is trying to go for. The lesson you want to create is all shown with all these characters. The better you centralize the theme with each and every one of these aspects, the more important it becomes. And then there's the comic relief. To me, at least, I think the comic relief is one of, if not the most important characters you could possibly write. Every story can have doom and gloom, and it could be as messed up as it is. But even in Breaking Bad, there is funny characters like Saul Goodman. There's funny people who do and act certain ways to then build on top of the greater story that you're trying to tell. How does a comic relief work in a fiction novel? All three of those areas can be done in whatever medium you're doing, but the comic relief is the hardest. I've been reading this book called The Scourge, and it's one of the most interesting books I've read in a while. And looking into the dialogue itself, many characters serve as the comic relief in what they're doing. It could be the main character or the side character as a whole, but they don't fill up so much space. It's more lighthearted energy in between the dark-rooted story this dark-rooted story or message you're trying to tell. And it's good to take breaks in between because that's what you're trying to advise with these characters. But understanding how to write the best of these four areas, the main character, the side character, the antagonist, and the comic relief, you need to go out there in the world. The biggest thing I want you to leave off with watching this video is not only engage with it in the comments to explain what I can do better, both in characterization and what you can do better to share your experiences with your own story, but to also understand that you have to go out there in the world to get better with these characters. No matter what, you want your reader to be entertained. And the way you should have them entertained is by having them explored as real people. They're fictional, but they can feel like real people. And you can only do that by going out and talking with people. No matter what your age, whether you're in school or not, go out there and talk with people that you don't even know yourself, but understand their story. Everyone has something to share, and even if there's someone that doesn't match your values, a lot of people don't go to the gym, surprisingly. They don't match it, and yet they still have something valuable to share. So you can use that information for better or worse. I, for one, use tons of my classmates' own negatives to then build on top of a stronger message I want to share out to the world. Think of a problem, a big problem you're trying to create. Then think of a solution. That's how you want to look at each and every one of your characters, no matter if it's the opposing side or not. To emphasize why these characters work, you need to know where they stand in between every one of these details. And then once you have that figured, you can then see exactly where they're going, what kind of message you want to tell, and then profit off of the ideals you're trying to make. It's all art forms, but I don't think you should focus all too much on it. Instead, focus on the work. You've got these characters in mind. Use hundreds of inspirations to then build on top of it. Like I said, talking it out in the world is one way to get these characters to feel more real, for the audience to be entertained and enjoy their presence. But it's also good to read more books, and even if I don't recommend it, watch more TV shows and movies. The more inspirations you have, the better. One idea is plagiarism, tens of thousands is creativity. If you want to check out more ideas in mine, check the top link of the description, engage with this video in the comments, and subscribing. I really enjoy. If you have nothing in mind, then to simply check out my book down there as well, along with my other socials. And until next time, take care.